Okay, for this first talk of this half, it's Sarah from Boden. She's the e-commerce manager at Boden, has been for 5 years. She's going to be talking about some of the customer testing work. She's done some of it with Bunnyfoot and some elsewhere, and how that's kind of perceived and taken, and the effectiveness within Boden of that. So, Sarah.
Thanks, John. All right. Sorry, I'm going to be a bit unprofessional with bits of paper. Since having a baby, my memory is slightly impaired, but we'll keep going. Where are we? Here we go. So Boden is very keen on talking to its customers as much as it can, in any form it can. And so doing usability testing really is just really an extension of that, to making sure we're doing things that the customers want us to do rather than us imagining what the customers want us to do, and they're often extraordinarily different things. So over the last 18 months, we've done quite a lot of testing, usability testing with Bunnyfoot. A lot of it has been around sense checking our end-to-end customer journey on the websites, and a lot of it has been around testing what we think might be different about the different markets. So we're live in the US, Germany, France, various other places coming, Austria, must not get Austria, and we sort of have a feeling that people will behave differently with websites, but actually, you know, we really didn't know what they were thinking about things. So we have done a lot of that. So there are a few things that we've done that have thrown up all sorts of different issues, some of which we knew about. For example, in Germany, we knew that selling to German customers with UK sizes really wasn't a good idea, but we didn't realize quite how bad an idea it was until we did lots of testing. So we did that, and, you know, go figure, it made a huge amount of difference, and that was it was good to get the information from the testing so that we could expedite the process and get it through the business and get it signed off and actually get it live, and it's gone live, and hey presto, it works. One of the other things we found out, which we weren't expecting, is that the Germans, not wishing to you know, conform to racial stereotypes, but they really like privacy data, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, all the stuff about security, and that's a very easy thing to fix. Obviously, we just make that very prominent throughout the customer journey now, or we're in the process of doing it, so we just label things all the way through, and that makes a difference as well. Just gives them a feeling of comfort, because they don't really know who Boden is over there. It's not such a well-known brand, obviously. Another thing that was thrown up was the Americans really like anything to do with service. Again, we probably could have figured that out, but it's anything to do with returns and delivery and all that kind of good stuff. They don't give a monkeys about the privacy policy and that stuff. It's that stuff they're after. So again, they're just little bits of, you know, things that we can bring to the forefront that give them more of a relaxed feeling about us. When we're testing, we try and replicate the full customer journey as best we can. So it might sound like a really obvious thing to do, but a lot of our customers get to us once they've looked at our catalogue, and then they go online with their catalogue there. And a lot of people go via an email, so we try and include that in our testing, so we don't just say, right, type in Boden and off you go. We try and start the testing a little bit further down the line. So with the catalogue, and you know, it was great we did that, because when we put people with the catalogues, and we sort of said, okay, you've got a discount code with your catalogue, you'll need to put that in when you're checking out, and they couldn't find it. So we could then go back to the catalogue team and go, you know that catalogue code? Nobody can find it. I mean, they really were going, where the heck is it? I can't find it. So that's been done now, so, you know, we never would have found out that. Another way we tested was via the email, as I mentioned. Again, at least 30% of our sales are driven by our emails. So, and they mostly have an offer attached to them. You have to work quite hard to shop from us without an offer, to be perfectly honest with you. If you start off with the email, they can click through. It takes the offer with them, so that when they're doing the testing, when they're in the checkout, they don't suddenly have to stop and think, oh, hang on, there's a piece of paper here with this code on. I need to type that in, because again, it just breaks the flow, and it's not how they habitually shop. So again, it's not rocket surgery, as my friend Paul here always says, but it's a good way to just try and replicate it as much as you can. I mean, you're never going to do it completely because you're in a laboratory situation or whatever, so it's always going to be a bit screwy, but it does help. And it gives you more realistic results in the end. Something else we did with Bunnyfoot was we did some eye tracking on some email designs. We're quite often having, I won't say arguments, slightly heated discussions with our designers about whether it's the brand we're pushing or whether it's actual product that we're pushing. And, you know, it has to be a happy balance between the two. But, you know, we're constantly having these discussions with them about what we should be doing. And I don't know if you can see behind the eye tracking blobs, but, you know, there's one photograph on the right there, which is a car, and it's piled high with furniture. And it's all, you know, it's all nice Boden fabric and all that sort of nice brand feel. But, you know, the customers were looking at it and going, what the hell are they trying to sell me here? I've no idea. You know, it doesn't sell cardigans. What's that doing? And again, there was another one there where it's a horse and it's been beautifully painted with flowers and all sorts of colours and it's absolutely lovely. But again, people were looking at this, even people that knew the brand and were good customers, and saying, I'm actually really not sure what this is trying to sell us. And, you know, actually we're trying to sell you kiddies' clothes. It doesn't sort of fill you with an overwhelming urge to go and, you know, to buy a load of stuff for your kids. So, you know, so that it was good evidence that actually we need to put more product in our emails, and that really does need to be the focus, and that actually has changed quite a bit. I mean, not all the time. We sometimes have to say, oh, hang on, guys. And you know, sometimes it does have a place where we use those more brand images, but generally speaking, not. The other thing that we did this about was because, again, and this discussion has not gone away, it happens every week, is how we treat the offer physically on the email. So do we have a nice sort of discreet, beautifully designed offer banner, or do we have a nice big sort of vulgar marketing blob that really screams out what the offer is? And we're still having this one. The eye tracking it wasn't conclusive, and you could argue in both directions, really, I think it's safe to say. But so we need to do a lot more testing until it comes back to the fact that you need the big old vulgar blob, and that works, and then we'll go with that. But yeah, we're still having that argument. Prototypes. We actually have really quite enviable checkout abandon rates. It's pretty good, but we knew there were things wrong with it. It had kind of been, you know, cobbled together over years and years and years, and our ops department had sort of snuck a few bits in there just for help our call centres and that kind of things, and it become a little bit of a Frankenstein. So we did some face-to-face testing in the Bunnyfoot labs, and again, it was fine, but there were quite a lot of things. And when you see people actually going through the checkout for the first time, you think, God, you know, that's so bloody obvious. Why didn't we notice that? That's ridiculous. And so we got a lot of feedback, and there were lots of things we could do. So what we then did was we sat down with Bunnyfoot and various people throughout our business. So we got people from IT and from ops and from our designers and from our web team, and we came up with a new customer journey that we thought was going to be the optimum. We then had Bunnyfoot built a prototype for this, which we tested. So we did remote testing. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted by bleeps here, sorry. So we did remote testing of this new prototype versus our existing checkout. And thank God the results were overwhelmingly in favour of the new checkout. And it really did make a massive difference. So, I think it slashed abandon rates at half the time to check out. I mean, it was really good stuff. With the best will in the world, we're not going to see figures like that when we actually put it into live, because it's never quite the same when you're testing as to when it goes live. But, even if it does a fraction of what it says it's going to do, we'll have that. Thank you very much. And it's also given us a really good data, both quant and qual, to wave in front of IT and say, right, and our business, and say, right, this is a massive piece of work, but we really need to do it because of this. We're leaving a load of money on the table here. It's a pain in the arse for customers, whether they're new or existing customers. It's still a pain in the arse, and we really need to get on and do that. So that's what we're in the process of doing, which reminded me, Jamie brought that up, that we need to get our prototype software on and get those in front of the board and IT, and make sure they do it properly. So that's one of our next big things to do. So usability is fabulous, it's awesome, it's wonderful, but I would say it's great if you use it in conjunction with other types of testing. It can throw up things that you think, oh great, that's the answer we wanted, let's go off and do that. But then when you test it by other means, it can go, well, maybe that wasn't quite what they wanted, or it just helps you to hone down the results, basically, if you use things like multivariate testing, customer research, focus groups, all these other things. So we try and back it up with other bits and pieces. So for example, are there any Boden customers here? Online Boden customers here? Okay, great. So it's the thorny issue of our stock availability grid here, which you can see is this thing that takes up half the page, and the designers and e-commerce managers really hate it, but our customers love it. And I've been trying to get rid of it since I started at this place, but I still can't. But I keep having a go. So basically, the usability testing we did said that our existing customers found it easy, they really liked it, don't touch it. When we tested on new customers, they got really confused. They didn't, it just wasn't intuitive. They didn't know how to use it, and it really stopped them in their tracks. So we thought, great, okay, here's an opportunity. So we went away and did some multivariant testing, where we built a drop-down menu system. So like most other retail websites, use a drop-down in some shape or form. We thought, oh, this is going to tranche it. This will be fine. It'll all be good, and we'll get on and get rid of this damn thing after all. And we're only partly way through the testing, but actually the grid is winning at the moment. So, this is a case where usability says, all right, you're good to get rid of it, but when you do testing on over thousands and thousands of people over several weeks, actually, it's not quite as easy as that. And, in Germany, for example, they, absolutely rubbish results for the drop-down. They absolutely love the grid, so, it's just stuff we wouldn't have figured out. So we haven't given up yet. We're going to do some different designs. We're going to try it again. We're going to continually test to make sure, again, try and get there. But, it just might come a point where we think, actually, this is by far the better way to do it, and all the other people using drop-downs, that they're the ones doing it wrong, not us. So anyway. We also do customer feedback sessions and research if we get usability recommendations that we think are a little bit, where did that come from? And your spidey sense is going, oh, hang on, this doesn't sound right. We need to look into this a bit more. And that's where we do some other research, because there could just have been something weird going on during the testing. There just might be some little variation that can throw it all out. So again, it's just the question of usability is fabulous, but it's almost like a stepping stone to doing other bits of research that actually then makes you kind of hone what the actual end result is. So what usability customer experience testing has given us. Can't read the lights shining on it. So internal awareness and insight into the challenges faced. It really helps us get in buy-in from different departments, and also when we're having arguments with various people, or the managing director says, oh, I saw this fabulous thing on another site, we should do that, Sarah. And I'm like going, okay, let's go off and test it. And of course it doesn't work. Well, no, can't say that. Might do. You never know. This is on video. You might see this. It's brilliant, really brilliant. It helps us to get IT buy-in to actually get this work done. And I'm sure it's been like this in any company I've been at, but that is not to be understated. That is very important. It gives us opportunities with third parties when we think maybe something that we're using, some white label bit of kit, isn't working quite as well, and we can help them to improve their product, which helps us. It gives us a lot of insights to put through MVT, which I've talked about, and it gives us a lot of qual and quant data to support the case for major cost changes where something is really going to be a big piece of development, like our checkout. Then it helps us get all that stuff down. Future plans. We need to do a lot more testing in the US, particularly, and in our other overseas markets. I think with the US we are very guilty of just assuming because they speak English, they can't, well, sort of English, they behave in the same way as we do, and they really, really don't. I have an American boyfriend, I can say that, that's fine. we need to do a lot of testing for tablets and mobile experience. We have a lot of browsing going on mobiles and tablets, but you know, that's growing very steadily. But the shopping rate is actually staying very, very flat. And somehow we need to kind of, I think everybody else is having the same problem, that it's all browsing, it's not really that much purchasing. Apart from at Screwfix, obviously that we need to do something like that. And we need to keep on sense checking with MVT and various other bits and pieces. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do MVT, it can be quite costly, but it is, you know, A/B testing, anything like that. And we need to do a lot more inspirational stuff, which very happy to hear any ideas anybody has of what we should be doing, what we should be testing. And that's about it.
So how are you organised as a business? Who's owning the customer? Because I'm interested in the experience of receiving 3 catalogues in 1 week and ripping out
always happens.
Ripping out the discount codes and then going online. So yes. My surmise from that is that you've got a lot of cost in the business you should be getting rid of. But do you have a customer segmentation strategy that understands how we move from having been a catalogue customer into being more of an e-commerce type customer? And how does that then play into, you know, how you understand what you're testing? Because are you just saying we're usability testing online customers here, or are we understanding this is a catalogue browser who only comes online when there's a discount code, or this is actually somebody that is only online, or do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do. We do, when we pick our people to do the usability testing with, we do try and get a sort of selection of new customers, existing customers, people who are web savvy, people who use the catalogue, so we do try and do that as much as possible. Who owns the customer? I mean, we sit in within the marketing department, and the marketing director is the person that owns the customer, whether they're online or offline. So we've got catalogue designers within marketing. I mean, over 80% of our sales now come through the website, but most of that is driven by the catalogues. And we know that because we do an awful lot of segmentation. We stop sending people catalogues. Sorry, you're obviously not one of them. And basically, if we don't send you catalogues, you just don't buy as much. And that is the bottom line, and that's what we always answer people with. Having said that, we are starting to do things like do smaller formats, sort of roll folds and that kind of thing, rather than full catalogues, because we know we get this always thrown in our face every time I do one of these things. It's always pops up. But you know, you're quite right. It is irritating. You keep getting the stuff. We are trying to move more towards that. We recently started doing an iPad app, which is a transactional, but it's more of a brand piece. So I think I sort of feel that the catalogue is a better tool, better vehicle for getting the brand across than the website will be. The website is there to be a bit more functional, to actually get you buy the stuff, but somehow we need to come up with a digital sort of replacement, if you like, for the catalogue, where it actually does that brand piece, and that's something we're working hard to figure out, but not there yet, obviously.
Great, any more questions? Fantastic, thank you very much. So, run over here. I'll deliver it over here. Good for my fitness.
Hi, I'm Chris. I work in user experience as well. I just wondered the impact of social media and what are your plans for that in the future, and would that kind of, is that something you're looking towards in the next year or so?
What usability test, user experience testing?
As in bringing social media into your kind of overall offering to your customers.
We do quite a lot. We currently have a community website. We do a lot on Facebook. We're just soon to be launching a Tumblr page. We do a lot of blogging, all that sort of thing. So it is something we got involved with actually quite early, possibly not early enough, but there you go. But our customers are quite rabid in their like of Boden, so they're very, very loyal, and they like to know what's going on behind the scenes, and videos and interviews with Johnny and interviews with our designers and that kind of thing. So actually we're in an enviable position for social media, where people are out there talking about us all the time anyway, and there's massive discussions. We go down often bad on Mumsnet, for example. So we were quite lucky in that we already had that sort of almost community feel about and social aspect to our brand anyway. So it's actually been a relatively easy transition for us to actually move into those areas. So more to come.
Right, thank you very much, Sarah.